Hey, my name's Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour, and you're watching a video right now that has a title that says How to Prepare for Death. So you know what you signed up for here. This is a difficult thing to talk about, but it's a super important thing to talk about because dying is part of the human experience. It's something that we all do once. And, well, there's a lot that goes into it. And since we spend most of our lives trying not to think about it, it can get pretty freaky when we do start thinking about it. And I know some of you are here because you saw the title and you thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then maybe got to thinking, well, yeah, it's a good thing to be mentally preparing for death. Maybe it changes the way I live and some good things come out of it now, but there's nothing impending for you. Others of you, like it just occurred to you that you're going to die someday. And maybe you're in your 20s. That's usually when this occurs to somebody for the first time. You start to see your body start to show signs of wear for the first time. You're like, what? I've always been getting better until right now. And that little thing is not an improvement. What is going on? And something that simple can start a series of questions that can really make mortality something that's on your mind a lot. And for some people, it even freaks you out. And if you're here and you're like that, I'm glad we're hanging out. I really think that this stuff that I've gleaned from way smarter people than me is going to be helpful. And also for those of you who maybe just got some brutal news and you jumped on the Googles or the YouTube search and you saw this title and you clicked in and we're meeting for the first time and you're trying to make emotional sense and detail sense and existential sense of what to do with, frankly, staring death in the face. And I haven't been there. So in that regard, I can't empathize. I'm sorry for what you're going through, but I've been around a lot of people who've been going through that. That's been my job for a long, long time. And there's stuff that you learn when you walk through these paces with people you care about again and again and again. And one of the most simple of those things is, well, where we're starting. This is video number 2 in the series. And the last one was kind of the introduction, the big picture. This one here, I just want to talk about getting things right with your house, getting life and details in order. And maybe this is the easiest one to tackle. There's a lot of work, but it's something that can bring peace and clarity. And there's a simple checklist. You can just knock this stuff out and feel this weight that comes off your shoulders, whichever type of person you are who's watching this thing. So here's the deal. I've done, in addition to a lot of the whole death thing, I've done a lot of weddings, which is a really fun part of what my job has been. And part of the beauty of that is I get to meet these awesome couples. And if I agree to do a wedding with somebody and they agree to do it with me, it's because we're going to put in work. That's the deal we make. We're going to do 5, 6 minimum sessions of lengthy premarital counseling where we're going to get into the stuff and try to set people up for success. And so, we talk about all kinds of things. Maybe I'll make some videos on that later on. But one of the things that we really work on is the ceremony, the event, the culminating event, the final event, if you will. You see the parallel starting to develop here? And what I'll say is, all right, you get this one thing that's on the calendar and it's coming and you know that it's coming and it's stressful and it's exciting and your world changes when this happens. And there's kind of a lot on the line. Everybody's going to remember it forever. You're going to feel that stress and that anticipation more and more as a couple as you get closer to it. So here's what I want you to do. We look at the date. And if the date they're supposed to get married is August 2nd, I go back and circle July 2nd. We are going to pretend as your officiant and as the couple that July 2nd is your wedding. And we're going to have everything done. I mean, everything done. If it's not done by then, I guess it's not part of your wedding. And that's okay. Because what I want is for you as a couple to have July 3rd to the day of your wedding to think about the people who got you there, to think about the last month of your life of being not married until one of you dies. That's a lot to take in. I want you to get everything out of that last month of engagement that you can get out of it. It's a unique moment in the relationship you're never going to have again. There are no promises yet, not before God and people. So everything you say and every bit of work you put into that relationship in that engagement time, it doesn't come with really an obligation. And so you get a real sense of where the other person is at and whether they're really in and what this really is. That month is huge and it's a blessing and it's an opportunity. But in order to get out of it what we need to get out of it, we got to get everything done way ahead of time so this can just be what it needs to be. You're smart. You see what I'm doing. Step 1 of preparing for death is to begin to live in such a way and plan in such a way that you just have the details knocked out. Now, especially if you've got tough news and you know that death is coming down the pike, this is an important checklist. But even if you're young and mortality's just occurred to you and this is a long ways away, do this stuff. It'll help. Step 1, regardless of age, make an appointment with an estate planning lawyer. I know this is incredibly practical, but hear me out on this. Don't go to your lawyer who does some estate planning. Go to an estate planning lawyer who does that and then nothing else whatsoever. What they're going to be able to do is walk you through some other things that you really ought to have figured out, frankly, now, like tomorrow, as soon as you're done watching this video. One is the will thing. Now, when people hear will, they usually think, oh, who gets my stuff? Well, yeah, that's a last will and testament. But additionally, there's this thing called a living will. That is very important, especially in my country, the United States, since we made some changes to privacy laws and who can interact with doctors on your behalf about 20 years ago. Those rules have changed. And now, if you don't have that living will in order, if you don't have clear legal paperwork and clarity that you can present if something terrible happens to you or somebody you love, you might not be in a position to make decisions or have the people you want to make decisions for you making those decisions. We got to clear these mental decks and get to a place where we know the stuff is just going to go the way we want if we find ourselves in a really bad physical condition where we maybe even can't speak for ourselves. So that living will is important. An estate planning attorney will know what to do. And the last will and testament is also very important, and that's where you decide what to do with your stuff. Now, I understand the demographics of YouTube. There are a whole lot of you watching this who are like, yeah, tell me more about my stuff. Like, come on, I like an Xbox and 9 pairs of socks. I'm not too worried about who gets what. I think whoever loves me will be able to sort it out just fine. Okay, understandably, if you're early in the game, you don't have a ton of stuff accumulated, maybe you don't need a whole lot of paperwork on your will in terms of what goes where. But you know what? Somebody dying legally is a really big deal. Now, obviously, we're going to get into the emotional side of that later, but legally, there's kind of a lot that goes into that. And even for people who don't have a ton of stuff, there are things that you can do out of consideration to all the people you love so that your mind is clear, their mind is clear, something happens to you, some things are going to go into motion, it's going to work out, it's going to be as smooth as this can possibly be, and the people who care about you can just worry about being sad and missing you and going through all the processes of grief that they need to go through, and then they can get on to the next phase where they become more functional. You don't want to waste their time on a bunch of stupid stuff. You don't want the people who care about you most thumbing through papers and trying to figure out how to reassemble your passwords and internet life and everything else to make this work. Don't do that to them. A good estate planning attorney can help you figure it out. If you can't afford that and it's not something you want to do, a good estate planning Google search will get you through most of what you ought to do. You just probably don't need to buy anything right now. That estate planning attorney is also going to help you with questions about money. This is not legal advice, so you do whatever you need to do. But the money thing becomes trickier once you really have anything at all. Debt to some extent, but also, well, like actual assets of any kind. Even a car you've partly paid for. All of these sorts of things are going to come into play. And what you don't want is to go through a situation where your family has to do anything legally to figure out what happens with your meager possessions. You want them to have clarity on that. But none of this matters in terms of how you organize your money, where you hide it and tuck it away and stash it and who gets what. None of it matters if people don't know where to find it. So if you want to get ready for death, you not only need to create a plan about what happens if you get hurt or incapacitated, as well as literally what happens to your stuff and your body when you die, but you also need to have people you love know where to find the plan. And the plan needs to be the kind of thing that somebody could open up that notebook and be like, okay, I know what Jeff wanted. All right, I know what Lydia wanted. That is exactly what she needed to happen here. And it's right here, it's binding, and we're just going to do this stuff. There are a ton of details that I don't have time to get into here, but I will tell you this. I spent time doing the estate planning thing with a buddy of mine. We both went off to law school at the same time. I veered off toward theology and bailed on law school. He finished. He's a fantastic estate lawyer. So I learned a lot with him. I worked with him. And let me tell you, we would have people come in who had a terrible plan or no plan, or a plan that caused everybody stress and made everybody mad at each other. And their lives, as soon as any outside pressure was applied from circumstances or the impending reality of mortality, they would go into panic mode, and I would have a front row seat to watching their relationships implode. All the people they loved, stuff's just breaking left and right because there's this enormous stress mingled with grief. But then I would have people come in. I can picture this one lady. I can picture this one dude. They came in. They got their plan. They were just kind of doing their checkup. I think the guy's name was Glenn. I think I can say that. He came in, and he's like, all right, everything where I left it? Well, here's where we're at, sir. We got this, 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 and this. He's like, all right. All right. And have you communicated that to your family, Glenn? Do they know where your book's at and everything like that? Oh, yeah, everybody's got the plan nailed down. We're good to go. And the man was just a picture of peace. He was also a person of faith. And we're going to talk about the role that plays in all of this a couple of videos down the road. But there's something about having this stuff in order, no matter how inconsequential it might seem to you right now, it changes the deal. You know, when you have a homework assignment and it just looms and you put it off and you put it off and you put it off and it gets closer and closer and the deadline's arriving. And then you know that feeling when you actually get it done and it's good. And you're like, yeah, I'm turning that in tomorrow. And I feel great about it. And you know, you sleep that night and you know how you just kind of want to go out and have fun with people and hang out and things feel light and good. That is how life can feel in part. One of the contributing factors can be getting this kind of stuff right. So we got the estate plan with someone who actually does that for a living. We got make this known to the people who need to know what to do with it. Additionally, you have a huge internet life now. We didn't worry about this stuff 20 years ago, but now, I don't know, think about what happens. People tweet things 15 years ago and they get put out of work as soon as they become important. The internet doesn't go away unless you make it go away. And even then, it doesn't totally work. So last time around, I joked about like clear your browser history. And some of you were like, that's dirty. No, I mean it. Just clear your browser history. I don't know what you're doing on there. I'm not trying to intone anything. What I'm saying is go clean stuff up. Go find your old accounts. Go scroll back through your email forever. Your email account will become your diary, your journal. If anybody wants to know who you are or what you were about or what you valued, it's going to be there. They're going to be able to piece it all back together. History is going to be a completely different academic discipline moving forward from right now on. We will tell the story of people through their internet life, through their digital life on their phone. And right now, you're still in the driver's seat with that. So shape it. Make that work the way you want it to work. Make the things go away that probably, frankly, need to go away. And maybe if they need to go away because you don't want people to know about them someday, maybe just make them go away now so that there's nothing to know about someday. It's not my job to tell you what to do. I realize this is a lot of practical advice, so I'm kind of acting like it is, but you do what you need to there. Use your judgment. Another thing that I would really encourage you to think about on this practical get the house in order stuff is you're going to be tempted, as King David was at the end of his life. And in the Old Testament, we get this account of him, holding the hand of his son as he's ready to die. And David has had this up and down life, did some crazy bad stuff that surely he would like to have forgotten, as I'm sure you would like to have some stuff forgotten. He did some beautiful stuff that I'm sure he would like to be remembered for, as I'm sure you've done beautiful stuff that I'm sure you'd like to be remembered for. And then at the end of it all, he's like, and also remember Terry and Doug and Marv and Karen and Linda, and you stick it to them on my behalf. It's like, gross, David. This is the worst out ever. And it completely colors your view of the guy as you wrap up his story, because that's the last stuff he did. He had revenge on his mind. Can I just give you this suggestion? I know you have been hurt by stuff. I know there are people from whom you are estranged who have wrecked you. They've said things about you. They did things to you. They hurt you in ways that are unspeakable in a video like this. I get it. I've been around that for a long time too. And I get the deep-seated sense of injustice that you feel. You should feel it. But ultimately, I at least believe that is going to get sorted out by someone who is fully qualified to sort that out. And it's not me, and it's not you. And we both know what it looks like to have somebody consumed by bitterness. Don't be that person on the way out the door. Don't make it a habit in the right now time. Don't make it a habit in your closing days. If you release that stuff, if you just let it go and you don't stick it to anybody with your will, you don't stick it to anybody with your estate planning, with how you get your house in order, you don't leave something sloppy to make it harder on so-and-so because of the awful things they did to you, what you are doing is going out on your terms, and your terms are grace and forgiveness. And you know what? If you treat everybody else like that, whether they appreciate it and know it or not, then it becomes possible for you to imagine that other people are going to treat you like that, even when you're no longer in the metaphorical room to defend your name. When you're gone, if you leave with grace, well, it makes it easier for you to pass on to the next thing imagining that others are going to treat you with grace as they remember you and what you were about. So plan with grace, plan thoroughly. And oh man, there's so many more details that I want to give you. But you know what? All of those details are going to be addressed if you do what I said and you talk to some kind of estate planning attorney, or at least Google it carefully. So there's some practical stuff. Tip of the iceberg. I could probably go on for a lot longer, but this video is already getting too long. So I'm going to hit pause there. There is one thing you'll notice I didn't talk about, and that is the funeral and how you get buried and remains and all of that stuff. I think I'm going to make a separate video where I talk about how to plan a good funeral. I've learned a lot from my mistakes and learned a lot from some things I've seen other people get right. I want to talk about some of those tips and secrets in another very practical how to plan a funeral for others or for yourself video. And we'll talk about remains and all of that stuff there as well. Was this dark? Was this morbid? Was it helpful? I hope it was helpful. I'm trying to be helpful. Anything here that makes any sense at all was something smart that I heard from somebody better than me. Anything here that was stupid and is advice worth ignoring, that was my own dumb idea, and you should feel total permission to blow that off. Whatever the case, wherever you're at, we're all in this boat together, and there are answers and there are ways and there are approaches to make this inevitable part of life that we're all going to face filled with grace and blessing and love and joy and perspective and even hope. And this is one step of a few that I want to talk about in that regard. Last thought on the way out the door. Yes, I am making a playlist on Spotify for songs about death. So far, it's a little bit darker than I wanted. I'm going to put some light stuff in there as well. But I want to invite you to think about that stuff with me. I'm also putting together a Bible playlist, if you will, of stuff about death and mortality. Also possibly morbid, maybe, but also possibly really, really valuable to get an eternal perspective that if you reject everything about God in the Bible, you can at least say, well, a lot of people have found meaning and comfort in that, even if I disagree with them. Or if you're like me and you are a person of faith and you think there's something on the other side of this, I think you'll find tremendous meaning and value in not running from such passages, but leaning into such passages. Both of those things, the music playlist, the Bible playlist, will be linked down below. And we're going to get on to talking about how to plan a funeral next time around. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour. Let's do this again soon.